Welcome and good morning to day 6, Oslo International Acting Festival. Today we have William Esper, which is the founder and director of Esper Institute, and Suzanne Esper, Esper, which is the associate director. You already there, you stopped me.
And it's William Esper Studio.
I'm sorry. It's a William Esper Studio.
It's an institute. We just a studio.
I don't know why I wrote institute. It's written somewhere in that program. Okay. They both have trained with.
They need to use the microphone.
Okay. You really need to use the microphone. Should we get them one more
Okay.
mic so they have one each?
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah. So if someone could bring us
Sånn,
one
Luka.
more mic.
Sånn, Luka. På enden der.
So, before I start to ask Bill and Suzanne questions, I want to make a little introduction, as I have done early mornings. Sanford Meisner was born in 1905, and he died in 1997. Meisner's parents were Jewish immigrants from Hungary. He started studying to become a concert pianist, but had to stop during the Great Depression, and later started as an actor. Together with the 3 founders of the group theater, there was 28 actors. Sanford Meisner was one of those. And as we talked about earlier, when we talked about Strasbourg, the group theater became a major influence on American acting and theater in the 30s. But Lee Strasberg's way of working with the affective memory in the group created a huge controversy. Another actor, Stella Adler, felt exhausted and uninspired of the constant demand of personal affection in training and work. Then she met Stanislavski in Paris and learned about the idea of magical if and the given circumstances. This was a way of entering the art of acting from the imagination and fantasy instead of through your own personal emotions, we can say, very superficially. Meisner became very inspired of this way of thinking. So when the group theater was disbanded in 1940, Meisner started as the head of acting program at the neighborhood playhouse in New York. Here Meisner taught and further developed his method, and in the center, so to speak, of this training method, we have something called repetition exercise, which is in its original form is very simple but extremely effective, according to these people and students. But also can be quite complex when it later goes on. Even though Bill has a training as an actor, he lost his interest for acting and started directing and training people. At least that's what he says in one interview I read. So Bill established his studio, which continued with Meisner training in 1965. Suzanne later became a part of this studio. The Esper studio have trained hundreds, I think probably thousands of students, and also some teachers. They have a 2-year study program, but also a long summer program. For the ones that want to try to understand what this method is about and how Bill teaches, I would recommend strongly The Actor's Art and Craft, written by Bill together with Damon DiMarco, which is like we go through the process of training a whole class. So we follow them through the entire study, so to speak. Yeah, the first year, I'm sorry. So through the process of learning the skills and through the exercises. So, first of all, since you are running this school, And this is America, and this means you can do whatever you like. I'm very interested at looking at when you're scouting for talents for your school, when you take them in, what are you looking for?
Seriousness of intention. We prize, most importantly, that the person really wants to dedicate themselves to serious training. That's the major thing, and personality. So we don't audition people. Sometimes we audition somebody, but not. It's really rare. We interview them, fairly long interview, and then go on our feeling about them. And I find that that's as effective as when I ran the MFA and BFA professional training programs at Rutgers University. We used to audition everybody, but I didn't get any better results auditioning than I did interviewing. So.
Really?
Yeah.
So how do you find?
I really get a sense of the person. You know?
How do you find out in an interview about the seriousness of intention?
I ask them why they want to act, and if they come back with a very easy, glib reason, I do. That's it. I don't take them. If they sit there and they say, I take them right away.
How do you know?
If they can articulate it too easily, that's no good. Because it's really, it's a powerful feeling.
Yeah, you're not concerned, or we're not concerned about seeing whether they can act or not, because everybody's on.
Hold it.
Because everyone, regardless of their experience, is going to be entering the classroom and starting at the very same initial point. So what you're really after is a feel of the person. And you talk to them and ask questions that you think will give you a sense of the individual, get some sense of who they are and their personality, period. That's it.
Does that
And
mean...
their vision for themselves.
I think there's something about them that grabs your attention, makes you want to work.
Can you make whoever to actors?
I'm sorry?
Are you able to make whoever to actors as long as they want and work hard?
No, you cannot. You cannot teach someone to be talented. Just like you can. You have to understand the restrictions of training. You can't give someone something that's not intrinsically part of their personality to start with. You can't teach someone to have a sense of humor. The moment you have to explain a joke to somebody, forget about it. Don't bother. You better immediately get another actor there who has a sense of humor. You can't make somebody deep who's not deep.
Probably the fire alarm again. It was the same procedure as last time.
Yeah.
We just waiting.
And the signs came on.
We're going to have to leave.
Probably, I don't know.
Why don't you know these things?
Det som är lite dumt att vi får ett rekord av någonting. Okay. Should we go?
Try it, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
But you can bring the actor to the point where all of him is being brought to his work, so that he's fully present in every moment. That's possible to do, and you can enhance their imagination, but you can't give somebody an imagination if they don't have one. Some people are just very literal. Those people don't make artists.
I'm sorry, I didn't see anyone leave the room. Somebody should leave the room and tell the reception that this light is on.
We are working it.
Someone is contacting.
They're calling.
Because they don't normally know. So how would you said, how do you find out about this
classroom. And sometimes, you know, the deepest talent takes the longest time to come to the surface. You can't just, we give them a year, and then at the end of the year, we take a look at things, get the reports from their teachers, their other teachers, and make a decision then.
No process, I think, of interviewing someone or trying to get someone, finding, I think every school or every teacher has had this experience, is foolproof. I mean, you're going to make errors in judgment sometimes, but overall, it's rather effective, I think, for, we have found, to find the students that we're looking for.
You know, one of the issues is that one of the issues with people is it's an escapist profession, acting. You know, it's easier. People think that it's easier than law school or medical school or things like that. But you spend time with the person, making sure they understand just how much work is involved. It's a lot of work. It's a dedication of your whole self to something, and that's a key factor. I kind of think that's part of talent. That's my theory. That capacity for work, you know, the passion for work, to do the thing itself.
It's part of what we would describe as
talent,
right?
Yeah. I remember once that I'm visiting an old student who's a visual artist, and down in the East Village, and I was walking down the street to his studio. He was out on the sidewalk, and somebody had thrown away a chest of drawers, and Christopher was there with a saw, and he was maniacally breaking this thing up, you know, into its component parts. And he's saying, look at this, and he's showing me the front with the holes where the drawers go. This would be fantastic. And there, the Christmas costume.
Back to our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the work that we do, Sanford Meisner's work, a la us, is really breaks down into two major parts. The first year of it has to do with building a truthful acting instrument, and to that end, that's where we start with repetition. And but that repetition is like the seed of an exercise, and forcing the actors to listen. That's the beginning of contact between them, and then real contact leads to real life. But that exercise, it takes about 6 months to put everything in place, because they have to take one element, master that, then they can add the next one, and so forth. A finished exercise, improvisational exercise, if you saw it, would look like a beautifully acted scene. Be very hard to tell the difference. I mean, but really well acted scene. The only tip-off might be the language, because they're using their own words. I mean, repetition only goes about 6 or 7 weeks, and it then becomes too restrictive on the actor's expressiveness. You know, they need so you have to teach them a very sophisticated thing, and that is to work off the other person's behavior in every moment for what it means to them. And they have to be in very close touch with themselves. Big part of that first year work. Second year has to do with taking that work, taking that instrument, and bringing it to the service of character and interpretation. And then beyond that, for people who are interested in that, there's, you know, language and period and style and theatricality and all of that. So that's a kind of overview of the way that it works. And I think a very important thing about Meisner's work is that he started everybody at the beginning. We start everybody at the beginning. They could be people. We had Bill Hurt came in one summer. He had won 2 Academy Awards, but he felt he was getting out of touch with himself. He felt rusty, and that goes on. People come back to the work to just refresh themselves.
So the repetition exercise is making the students to listen and react spontaneously. Is that what we should describe as the kind of core of it?
That's the beginning of it, yes.
Can you just try? Can you just show us so we have a clue for the ones that don't know?
Yeah. Okay, well, we had Timothy and Toast. Do a little. You never know what's going to happen in an exercise. Okay?
Yeah.
So, this is the very beginning. This is how it starts.
Please use the mic, Bill.
Oh, this is how it starts. You're going to start, Toast. And you always begin with some observation about the other person. Immediately you start working with your concentration and awareness has to be on the repetition, and then after a few days it's expanded to include the whole person's behavior. So you start.
Your heart is beating fast.
My heart is beating fast.
Yes, your heart is beating fast.
My heart is beating fast.
Yes, your heart is beating fast.
Where do you get that from?
I could see it on her.
Oh, really? I don't know what he's talking about. You start one. It came from something. The important thing is that nothing is ever manufactured. People don't start with, so how are you today? A general remark like that. It's always something specific about the other person. In the beginning, usually something external.
You're wearing too much blue today.
I'm wearing too much blue today?
You're wearing too much blue today.
I'm wearing too much blue today.
Yeah, you're wearing too much blue today.
I'm wearing too much blue today?
Yeah, you're wearing too much blue today.
All right, okay. Very quickly, you see when she added that, yeah, she was saying you're wearing too much blue today, you're wearing too much blue today. And then she said, yeah, you're wearing too much blue today. That was a change in the words of the repetition, which came from an impulse in her that was created inside of her just by the repetitiousness of the repetition. You know, how many times can you tell somebody they're wearing too much blue today, and they say, yeah, well, I'm wearing too much blue today. If somebody says to you, you have a nice belt, and you say, I have a nice belt. Yeah, you have a nice belt, I have a nice belt. Well, after 4 or 5 or 6 times, you can never know. That may generate an impulse. The person may come, so, all right, I have a nice belt, so what? Just their point of view. You're always repeating from your honest point of view. You look like you're going to the gym.
I look like I'm going to the gym.
You look like you're going to the gym.
Yes, I look like I'm going to the gym.
Yes, you look like you're going to the gym.
Yes, so what?
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 Yes, so what? See, what is a valid change? Yes, so what?
Yes, so what?
Yes, so what?
Yes, what is it to you?
What is it to me?
Yes, what is it to you?
What is it to me?
Yes, what is it to you?
Well, excuse me.
Excuse you.
Well, excuse me.
Yes, excuse you.
Well, excuse me.
Well, excuse you.
He's a little rude. He is a little rude.
He's a little rude.
He is a little rude.
Yeah, he's a little rude.
Yes, he's a little rude.
Yeah, he's a little rude.
She thinks you're a little rude.
She thinks I'm a little rude.
She thinks you're a little rude.
She thinks I'm a little rude.
Yes, she thinks you're a little rude.
She thinks I'm a little rude.
Ah, no, I said yes.
You said that.
You didn't listen. So it immediately forces you to listen because you're going to repeat what somebody said. You have to hear it to begin with. And to hear it, you have to be listening. Yeah, that's the beginning of content. And then there are 4 ways the repetition changes. The words of the repetition change. One is off the impulse that's generated from the sheer repetitiousness of the repetition. It can kind of pile up inside of you and make an impulse. And that's a very important baby step in bringing the actor in contact with their impulses, knowing when they're having one, and allowing the repetition then to change because of that. It may also change off of an honest answer. If I say, this would not be a valid way to start, but just for an illustration. Are you wearing a wig?
No, I'm not wearing a wig.
Immediately she has to change it to keep it truthful. She can't say, am I wearing a wig? You're not wearing a wig.
No, I'm not wearing a wig.
So you have the truthful answer, you have the repetitiousness of the repetition, and then you also have changes where the class is now, that we're working with upstairs. They also are working off the behavior. You know, that's quite a pose.
This is quite a pose.
This is quite a pose.
This is quite a pose.
Yeah, that is quite a pose.
Yeah, it is quite a
Yeah.
pose.
Pretty exciting, huh?
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting, huh?
Pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting, huh?
Yeah, I'm exciting you.
Yeah, you're exciting me.
I'm exciting you.
Oh, you're exciting
I'm
me.
exciting
She thinks she's exciting me.
She thinks she's exciting you.
Yeah, she thinks she's exciting me.
Yeah, she thinks she's exciting you.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, 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 that's right.
That's right. And you see, Meisner was he was a brilliant man, very talented, very deep, with an extraordinary imagination. I forget what I was going to say. What was the point I was doing? Process. I don't know. Simplicity. He was dedicated really to simplicity. And like Dostoevsky, who said, be simple and rediscover the world. And that's not an easy thing for people to come to be that simple and that easy, and just listen and respond, listen and respond. So the habit is begun. Because a lot of technical training has to do with making habits. When you're talking about craft is really a set of ingrained habits. It isn't until somebody can't help doing something in a certain way anymore that you can talk about their craft. You know what I'm saying? A finished actor, a really well-trained actor, no well-trained actor, they don't think about listening. They can't do anything else. You know what I mean? They have to listen. And the other thing is that everything starts out of the contact. And this just keeps evolving and evolving day by day, really, and gets more and more real. In other words, eventually the exercise has in it all the ingredients that would go into a straight scene. You would have an objective, a reason for the objective, pre-circumstances, you would have a relationship, everything that would be in a straight scene, you would have and be working with. So that then, when they're handed a text, it's very easy for them to carry the work over to a written text. It's just instead of saying whatever comes to them or repeating, they're coming back with the written text, which is memorized. One of the issues in training an actor, I think everybody really understands, is that the text is a very confusing thing, and it can hide a multiple load of problems. Just because somebody knows their lines and they're saying them more or less on cue, you might think they're acting, whereas they're not acting at all, they're just saying lines. And with this repetition, it really brings people right to the text, which we're going to see in the next, today and tomorrow, hopefully.
Did you want to
See
show
what
more?
happens.
Did you want to show more, or should we let them
No,
thank you for our students?
that's really I mean, we would do this repetition for like 6 or 7 weeks. But you know, Sanford Meisner said to me one day, he said, you know, repetition is a very dangerous thing. And I said, why? And he said, because anybody can teach it and anybody can learn it. That's dangerous.
Yeah, this seems to be, I mean, come on, it seems like you need to have a very, what is it called in music, perfect pitch, to be able to see precisely when someone is reacting very spontaneously, or they invent something, or come up with something, and in the hands of someone that is not able to see this, this exercise would be maybe
destructive.
Yeah,
it would be destructive. You know, I was there when this exercise was born, the repetition exercise. But when I studied with him as an actor, we didn't do repetition. We started immediately from the behavior. You look kind of serious.
I'm kind of serious.
Yeah, don't get playful with me.
Don't get playful with you.
That's what I said.
That is what you said.
What are you doing?
What am I doing?
You're working directly off the behavior. Can you say everything I'm saying is because I'm getting it from her? I'm not making anything up. She made me say it. But that's a very important principle in the first year. And that is that what you do doesn't depend upon you. It depends upon what the other fellow does to you. And you can't do anything except what they make you do. Now, because you can't do anything unless the other person makes you do it, then whatever you do, you really do. The actor can't help it. For every ouch, you have to have a pinch.
Are we bad listeners normally? Since we have to exercise to listen in our repetition?
Well, it isn't. You know, you can do something in life, but the moment you try to have the actor do the same thing on the stage or on the set, it's a whole different reality. There are all these people watching, there's everything that's at stake. You know what I mean? So consciousness is...
But there is an issue. I think that it's beyond just what you hear. I mean, you're developing a sensitivity to really, to behavior. And that is a skill to develop. And there's a lot that that young artists do not see. They simply do not see. And a lot that they're really not in touch with. They're really, who the authentic person is, who's really home, is an issue. And that takes time in the discovery process. And it's not uncommon for the student during the course of that first year to make very real discoveries that, oh my God, I thought that meant something to me, but the truth of it is, it doesn't. And have moments happen to them that really surprise them. They have no idea they felt the way they felt. And so it's an exciting time, and it's almost universally true for the student who's studying to have that.
So it's not only about listen, but also listen or react on your own impulses.
Yes. It's about getting out of your head. Yeah. You don't act from up here. It's experiential. Everything is experiential, and it's bringing everything back to the gut. To the gut, and really getting you out of here. Repetition is an extraordinary device to achieve that end, as is the independent activity for releasing the subconscious. It's a tremendous tool for that.
You also then we would bring tasks into this. One person would be doing a task, which we push to get them more and more and more invested in it. But it has to be something that demands all their concentration in order to do. And so when all their conscious concentration is here, and they're trying to translate this poem into a language they're a little shaky about anyway, And then they have the necessity of responding continuously to these endless interruptions that are coming from the other person. And it's kind of left brain, right brain, you know. Then the emotional side of it starts to really open up. You know, but everybody says to the young actor, be yourself. You gotta be yourself. But then, next question is, yeah, I want to be myself, but who the hell am I? And you learn who you are not by intellectually probing yourself, but by being completely spontaneous. Because we would say the truth of you is in your spontaneous responses.
That's the truth of me.
Yeah.
Not the one you think about, or you know, and then come up with it. Because usually then you're coming up with something that has to do with how you want people to perceive you, or.
I think Meisner talks about the reality of doing. Is this connected to that? That
Yes.
What I am it's not my emotions or something that is me, but my actions. What I.
Well, it is coming, but it's sparked by how you feel.
The place of emotion in the work. In American acting, emotion is an important ingredient. The thing about it is fooling around with it. Self-inducing emotion is a kind of dangerous thing. It can really tie the actor up if you're not careful. Because a terrible thing to have happen is that the actor becomes emotion conscious, and he gets this distorted feeling that if I'm crying, it must be good. And he said, no, you're crying, please don't do that here. That's not good, what you're doing. Please, do that over there somewhere. We don't want to watch that. It's too ugly what they're doing. So they have to be able to handle, first of all, create the emotional life, and then leave themselves completely alone with it, and be completely free and completely open to whatever else is going to happen. And their inner condition has got to change from moment to moment to moment to moment. You know, you can't hang on to anything.
I'm just curious. What was Meisner's? How did he was with Strasbourg? What was their connection later in life?
Well,
How did he feel about?
As a young guy, he was one of Strasbourg's earliest students when Strasbourg was teaching down on the Lower East Side. And then he was in the group theater. He was a founding member of the group theater. And Strasbourg did a lot of teaching there and directing and so forth. But he and Stella Adler both rejected a lot of what Strasbourg did. They didn't believe in it. And interestingly enough, they were both very talented actors. They were very good actors. And I think that has something to do with the way they felt about the work. You know? Imagination, imagination, imagination. They believed in that.
How do you now work with this Meisner method? Is it the same now in your studio as it was, or have you developed it? What have you added something?
I ask that sometimes. Before I wrote the book, it was a long time before I wrote the book, because I figured, well, Sandy wrote the book, and that's it. But then, I was someplace, and some kind of convention, meeting or something, and these people had all these questions, and even people who had done the work had all these questions about it. So I sat down and I read the book, really read it, very seriously. And then a lot of the reality of doing gets kind of short shrift in there. The book is mostly about emotion, emotion. And I saw a lot of things that the real emphasis that we place on sensitizing the instrument and the awareness. There's a kind of whole sensitization process that has to take place. If that's where the whole question of working off the behavior, that's the subtext. You know what I mean? I mean, if you say to me, you have a line, just, do you think I have any talent? And my line is yes, it's on the page. Go ahead.
Do you think I have any talent? Come on.
Yes. Yeah, see, you got it. I didn't really say yes. So ask me again.
Bill, do you think I have any talent?
Yes. What do you get from that?
It's obvious.
Yeah, I hate that question. It's a stupid question.
Yeah.
Ask me again.
Do you think I have any talent, Bill?
Yes.
That's nice.
That's nice.
Thank you, Bill.
But you see, if they don't hear that, the real answer is never in the text, never in what they're saying, it's in the behavior. So they have to be, our actors, where successful, are very good at reading behavior. It's like second nature to them. And being very responsive to it.
I just want to mention the book of Sanford Meisner on acting, for the ones that is interested.
Yeah, it's also a wonderful portrait of Sandy himself. It was a very interesting man.
You can also mention the documentary.
Oh yes. One Man's Method is a lovely documentary about him. After he lost his voice.
Yeah, with too much smoking.
Yeah, but you know, he was a man of few words. We were talking about it the other night. I remember him saying two things to me, really, in 2 years. Other than, that was okay, that was good, very good. That was a real, that kept you going for a week.
He told me it was fine.
You never said that to me. And then after he lost his voice, he became even fewer words. So whatever came out of him, you were really listening for. He said. But you know, it was the work, and it was. He felt, and I feel, it's very, very important that the student know when they're doing something right. You know, a lot of times you're constantly sort of criticized, the student's being criticized, but they also need to know that was good, that was right, you're doing the right thing. Keep doing that. You know? Because as a musician, he had this whole sense of, you know, you had an exercise, and the teacher would say, okay, I want you to practice this exercise. So you'd go home and practice, go Thursday, and the teacher would say, yes, that's right, go home, keep doing that. Or I'd say, yes, that's right, do that, and now add this. And that's the way he thought of, you know, teaching actors also.
I think we should open up for a small round of questions before we have to take a break. Anyone? Nobody. It's so clear. Yeah, there's a
I'm
question.
not that.
Do we have a mic for the phone?
Okay, so you're talking very much about responding to another actor on stage or on screen. How about being solo?
Yes, yeah, that question always comes up, and it's it is an issue in acting. Those situations do come up, especially in film. You know, they say, you know, talk to the hand, you know, or you know, the other actor, or talk to just to the side of the camera or whatever, when the other actor isn't there, or you're dealing with may not be just another actor, you know, maybe some object. Where in terms of monologues, people are always asking about monologues. There aren't any monologues really in any plays or anything. There may be a soliloquy, but there may be long speeches, but they're not monologues because they're connected to an object. And unless the actor is trying to communicate with an object, you're not going to get any truthful acting. You're going to get recitation, because there's got to be something that's giving him something back. In Morning Becomes Electra, Orm has a long speech to his father's corpse, in which he's doing something. He's making fun of his father, dead father. You know, that he was a real stiff in life, you know, and how much he disliked him and hated him, and he's glad he's dead. But the reality comes from the meaning of the corpse, the meaning of his father to him, which is a relationship. Sometimes, see, we do a lot of work with daydreaming. A lot of work with daydreaming. That's where we generate emotion that the actor may need before they come on the scene, before they come into the scene, or the shot, you know. I mean, you have a shot to do it, you got to break down and be crying. You have to have some way of preparing for that so it happens. But you know, you've had the experience, I'm sure, where you're walking down the street and all of a sudden you're aware that you're having an argument with your father, the same argument that you always have with him, right? And it becomes very real, you know, and he's really there, and he starts saying things back to you, and you say something to him, and he says something to you, right? And I feel the way to handle those monologues is you have to create the other person. You have to know really specifically who they are to you, what they mean to you, how you feel about them, and why you're talking to them, and what you're trying to achieve with what you're doing with them. You have to answer all those questions like a little play. And then it works very well.
There are a couple of questions here. First, Alan, I think.
It is very fascinating to hear how you work with impulses and listening. Great. Could you describe in some detail how you work with developing of character, perhaps more theatrical characters? Do you have some tools connected to your method specifically, or do you just work with general things as observation?
No, there are specific tools that have to be mastered in terms of that. The one reason I've stayed always with Sanford Meisner's work is you can, with his work, you can take the actor anywhere, you know, because it's grounded in the reality of doing. And it doesn't matter whether you're playing Luke Skywalker or a fairy in the woodland, whatever it is, you still are doing things, concrete things, real things. The difference is how you're doing it. You know, it's what I did yesterday, you know, with the acting teacher. But there are very specific tools to help the actor identify, you know, with the character and become one with the character. If you say, like, the character often starts out here somewhere to the actor, you know? And I'm here and here's this character. So the bridges to that character, one bridge is the reality of doing. The moment I begin to do the things that Hamlet does, I'm on my way to becoming Hamlet. You know? And the other part of it is knowing what everything means to the character, and then finding that meaning, that connection inside yourself. And there are things like particularizations, right? We'll do one exercise that we were just doing before we came up here, that I love, and we get wonderful results with it, is the actor has to find a point of view that isn't his own. You know, in other words, if he's anti-abortion, right? In real life, he has to be pro-abortion in the exercise. He has to take whatever it is. It's not his point of view in real life, and we get a lot of behavior out of it, and actors take to it and love it. So that's one, that's one aspect of character work. And we do other things.
There's a lot of conversation yesterday about when do you start the character work. And I think it's sometimes dangerous to get too chatty with the actor. An actor can surprise you. You can't negate the fact that they're instinctive and talented. And it's perfectly possible, and I've seen that happen, where an actor picks up a script and something speaks to them so profoundly that there's an innate connection to that character. Dear God, but then what you want to do is get out of their way. Don't start to talk to them about it. They're onto something. And that can happen immediately. And, and eventually when you're working in a part as an actor, whether it's, you eventually find that part. When the show is over, there's a mourning process. I think many actors have experienced that. The show is over and there's understandably a mourning process because that person lives within you and there's a little death. You have to say goodbye to them. It's not going to be anymore. And as that friend you've made, that's a piece of your soul. Well, when you come to a part, some friends in your life, I like to tell my students, the characters are like friends in your life around you. And sometimes you meet a person at a party and it's immediate. You want to sit down with them and you'll tell them your life story. Other people that are equally important to you take a little time to get to know. They take some time to get to know. And coming to a character is like that too. And sometimes you find your way in from the outside in. Sometimes it's a physical suggestion that starts to feed you emotionally. And sometimes it's an emotional suggestion. Sometimes you're working with points of view and emotional connections to them that help you find your way in. But there's a variety of ways, and I don't think you can confine the actor by making a rigid rule about how it's going to be. And nor can you negate the fact that, dear God, it may be very simple for them, and leave them the hell alone.
But he's asking about exercises.
Yes, exercise.
I'm in the middle of writing a book about character interpretation. I'm finding it a lot harder than the first one because it's more complicated, But a depressed man is a character. It can be just an emotional point of view. A happy young woman in love is a character. Then there are physical additions that the actor may make to himself. A dialect is part of a character. You have an Irish dialect, let's say. I don't know. Types, yeah. Sometimes it's an imitation. I remember I had an actor, Paul Sorvino, was in that movie Reds, and I thought he was pretty good in it, and I told him that, and he said, oh yeah, but that was so easy, That was nothing, that part. That was my Uncle Charlie. So the moment he read the script, it was his uncle, so he did an imitation of his uncle, and because he's a very talented actor, it wasn't just an external imitation, he began to fill it out and make a human being out of it. There's also issues that come in when you start to get into period and language and all of that, where you can't even attempt that work unless they have done a lot of work on their voice and speech, and their equipment is really ready for the work. And physical work, the physical instrument is primed and ready to do that work. So it kind of depends on when you issue it. But any addition which creates behavior and changes the actor's straight behavior into something else is a character idea. and you know, whether. But they need to be simple ideas. You know, there's a wonderful play, Ian Esco's The Lesson, which I love to work on. The teacher who murders all his students. You know that play?
I like that.
Yeah. Well, Ian Esco too. He hated education, schools, and all of that business. So, but if you tell the guy's playing the teacher, I mean, it could be a lot of different ideas for that character. One thing that's fun with it is he's a Nazi, you know, so he's very, you know, like that. And the poor little girl who's there is immediately intimidated by this guy. Or maybe he's just a jolly kind of a gnome, you know. Maybe that's the character. Or maybe he's a real pedagogue, you know, like Don at Oxford or something. And any one of them would be valid, you know. Depending on the actor, that's what makes the difference between one interpretation and another. It's the seed idea. And once you have that idea, then, you know, the humanity of the actor, the human presence and humanity of the actor fills it out, you know, and makes it a three-dimensional human being.
I just want to add to this discussion also, because we're going back there very often, that we might we can somehow, there is a lot of ways of talking about this, but I think it's important to separate between an essential and an existential perspective on man. That are we our actions, basically, or does it exist and core in us beyond these actions? So that's, I think it's also a kind of, it was not something I wanted you to respond on. I just wanted to clarify it as two possible perspectives. Carmen Lara, you had that question?
First of all, thank you. I'm learning so much, and it's an honor to listen to you talk about your work and your history and experiences. I'm curious about this daydreaming. I want to ask if you can go back to that, because daydreaming is a really beautiful and amazing thing for any human being to be given time to do. So when you give a student time to do it, do you have in your mind as a teacher what they should be doing, what kind of daydreaming? Because daydreaming can be visions of other worlds, daydreaming can be memories of reality, of so-called reality. Can you talk about that?
No, you don't want to limit them. You want to expand them. Not limit. You only daydream about these things. That's not good. Daydreaming was Meisner's answer to Strasberg. He hated emotional recall. I don't know why exactly, but he hated it. And daydreaming has a lot of things going for it. First of all, it's something the person already knows how to do. So they already do it. So it's not like you're teaching them a new skill. That's something they don't really do in life. Right? And the very good thing for actors, a very lucky thing for actors, is that the human nervous system can't really tell the difference between a fully imagined daydream or fantasy and reality. I mean, somewhere in there they have there's an awareness there, but they really can't tell the difference, and so they'll respond in a daydream with the same kind of emotional response they would have in life. Now, the very important thing, though, if you're dealing with that with the actor, is secrecy. You never ask an actor what they're using to generate their emotion, you know, because it's none of your business, really. The only thing that counts is that they get emotion or they didn't. If they got it, it's good. If they didn't get it, that's bad. And maybe you can make some suggestions that will help them. And the other thing is not being literal. In other words, Sandy talks about it, and I talk about it in the books. It's once you know what you want. Sandy always used the example of Charles Lawton, who was a really wonderful actor, and he did a movie called The Man Who Inherited, I don't know, £1 million or something. But in this movie, Charles Lawton, who is a really good actor, was like a Bob Cratchit kind of character. He worked for this Simon Legree, this awful man who hated him just really badly. He didn't have any money. He never got a day off. Even his birthday he couldn't get off. Never got a raise. And lived in a really crummy furnished room, you know, because that's all he could afford. And one day, he gets a letter from some lawyers, and it turns out that he's inherited from some person that he never even knew, £1 million. So there's a shot in the film of Lawton coming down the corridor to the boss's office to tell him what to do with his job. Now he's a millionaire. So if you imagine yourself doing that scene, that you're going to do that scene, you know? Well, the first thing you have to understand about it is how you feel the character feels about it. Lawton's answer to that, how he felt about it, was a kind of a kind of triumph, you know, like that. Well, once you know that, you know, then you have to know yourself, right? And you have to have a kind of bank of daydreams you know that you require. And you say, well, there's something that only you know that you've never told anybody in your life, and you never would. You never tell them, because what would they think of you? Because for you, the only thing that generates that kind of sense of victory, of triumph, joyous triumph, you know, is sexual seduction. That's what does it for you like that. It's not money, it's not jobs, it's not inheriting money, none of it. Well, now you know where the daydream goes, you know, and after you've had your experience with whoever you want to that day, right? And not only that, which is very important, you have to come back to the circumstance, not only that, but now I get to go and quit my job too. And now you're ready to go down the hall. And that's connected to the circumstance. Not you have to leave the daydream behind. But once the daydream's generated the emotion in you, you don't need it anymore. And emotion, once you have the emotion, it has a way of attaching to whatever the circumstance is.
We have to stop. Did anyone burn in with that question?
Øystein.
John Lucas says no. We are very late. We had a fire alarm and everything. I'm sorry. It's 11:30.
Okay.
So we make a very, very tiny short break. Thank you very much, Bill and Susanna.